r/askreddit. Parents, what did your child's school say that made you say, "You can't be serious"? Story 1. My kid went on an overnight school trip. I got multiple messages and emails from the principal saying he had snuck out in the middle of the night and jumped off a dock into the lake. When he got home, we asked him about it. He started laughing. He thought we were messing with him because he had no idea what we were talking about. My kid could be a turd, so I emailed the principal and a couple teacher chaperones to get more information. The teachers told me they had no idea what I was talking about. It was the first they were hearing about any incident at camp, etc., etc. Principal went silent. Dodged my emails and calls. A week later, she apologized to my son by saying, "Sorry, I must have mistaken some wildlife for. Tell your mom you're all good." Never heard from her directly, and a year later, he's still going on field trips, and there was no follow-up. Such an unnecessary, heavy accusation. Never really regained confidence in the school leadership. Story 2. School wouldn't let my son carry his own Ventolin inhaler for asthma. Instead, he needed to go to the administration office and ask for it. Head office lady called and said his frequency of visits was increasing, that perhaps he was forming a habit, and should she still give it to him? Stunned silence. He needs it to breathe, so yes, please still give it to him. Story 3. I was a teaching assistant in a preschool special education, primarily with kids with autism on all ends of the spectrum. They had a policy of us not being allowed to use the word no, and instead saying not a choice and instead offering choices. Okay, brilliant. But there was an incident where a child wanted a toy another child was playing with. He started hitting him in the face and pushing him and trying to take the toy, and he was much bigger. I rushed over and said, "No, stop." I caught his hand and said, "Not a choice," and redirected him to other toys. The teacher scolded me for telling him no and getting hands-on by catching his hands. I told her there is a time and place for the word no, and attacking another child needs immediate intervention. I'm not going to reason and hope it works. I stood my ground on that one, but I spoke to both parents personally, and they both thanked me for intervening. Story 4.
During the summer holidays one year, we dyed the last 6 inches of my daughter's long hair reddish purple. It had faded a fair bit by the time school started again, but we still braided it and put it up in a neat bun so no color could be seen. One day, it started to fall down after a PE lesson, so instead of simply helping her tuck it back up, the teacher called me to tell me off for allowing her to have colored hair. I was incredulous, and let the teacher know exactly what I thought of her decision to drag a 10-second tidy-up job into a disciplinary issue involving a phone call. That bloody woman was a pill.
Story 5.
Didn't give my son an ice pack to put on an injured knee until they could speak to me and get permission. I was at work and so couldn't respond immediately, and they didn't bother calling anyone else on the list, because according to them it is a medical procedure, so they need parental permission. I don't even really care about the ice, it was a very minor injury, but I was baffled by their reasoning.
Story 6.
My son was being physically bullied by another kid who apparently had issues. He informed the teachers and nothing happened. He came home very upset after a week of this and finally told me. That weekend, I taught my son the basics of self-defense and told him he had my full permission to flatten the bully if he tried it again. Monday morning, I went into the school with my son and told them that he will now be defending himself from assault as permitted by law. The school had a no-hitting policy that apparently applied even if you were being hit by someone else. I warned them that this was actually illegal and against our country's legislation, and that regardless of their policies, my son would exercise his legal right to defend himself by punching the little creep in the face as hard as he could if the creep tried to start something. Miraculously, they were suddenly able to keep the bully under control, and there were no further problems.
Story 7.
When I was in high school, I went into my math class. 2 girls I knew told me they thought they saw one of our classmates with a knife hidden in his waistband. I asked if they were going to tell the teacher. They said no because he sits on the other side of the classroom, so it's not like we would be stabbed. I went to tell the teacher. The teacher made a phone call, and a few minutes later, the student was called to the office. Next class period, I get called to the office. The administrators grilled me aggressively about it as if I did something wrong or was in on it with the other student. They also searched my bag. When they found nothing suspicious on me, they showed me the 10-inch hunting knife they took off the student. They told me that he said he brought it to scare some kids who were picking on him, but he never intended to use it. This was 2 years post-Columbine, and the school had a zero-tolerance policy. The student was sent back to class, and his father was called to come pick up the knife. There was no other punishment. The next day, the whole school was gossiping about the situation, and they all knew it was me who turned him in. The 2 girls who originally told me they saw the knife were pissed at me for telling, because now everyone knew they were also involved and feared retribution from the knife guy.
Alright, that's our /askreddit. Thank you for watching. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of school.